Every time he I don't know, queefs a barrel. What the fuck's it called?
Queefs. Thief. It's a thief.
Thiefs a barrel.
He doesn't queef a barrel. Hey everyone, it's Greg from the future again, bringing you the second part of the episode that we released last week. This episode is going to be about some liquor and bourbon terms and definitions, as well as us identifying a bunch of the words that you generally see on a bottle. If there's good ones, if there's bad ones, if they mean something, if they mean nothing, and just kind of in general what to look out for. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and without any further ado, hop right in.
Yeah, before we hit definitions, like real quick, like mid-episode tasting notes.
Okay.
Mid-episode, Glenn hearing the dog barking across the street.
We get two main notes.
Hold on.
Yep.
Okay, what are your two main notes?
Vanilla and oak. Same thing we were talking about before. Mostly vanilla oak. The more I drink it, honestly, the lighter it tastes, because it's kind of like almost like a light flavor. It's not like the charred oakiness that we often get on our like double chars and stuff that's like really deep like smokiness to it. I'm not getting the smoke. I'm just getting the light oak and some vanilla notes.
Yeah, no, I am still getting that spicy, like
maybe a bit of clove.
Like I'm getting like cinnamon and pepper.
Really?
Yeah, like it's like I'm getting like that cinnamony. Maybe it's just like the way you and I taste spices. Because like, is cinnamon and pepper that different from clove? Not really. Yeah. I mean, yes, but no.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you're going with Szechuan pepper, and it's just the numbing of your tongue.
Maybe, because like I mean, this. Even though it's getting smoother, the more of it I have. Yeah, I'm still getting the woody oakiness, which you should get in most bourbons. Like that's like a hallmark.
Per the definition.
And then I'm just like getting the vanilla. I'm getting too. None of like the stone fruits. Like it says on like the label and like in the tasting notes.
Not even a little bit.
Maybe our palates are trash. I don't know. I
can maybe give you like apricot, maybe not dried apricots. Like actually, if you eat an apricot, that I can get that a little bit. But like very like it's all mild. It's all very mild.
Yeah, but there's more going on there. Like it's for me, it's not just two-tone. Like I'm getting more than that. There really is complexity here that I didn't necessarily anticipate off of such a high proof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, it's quite enjoyable now that my tongue has gotten used to the fire.
Yeah, now that your tongue's permanently burnt.
Yeah, and now that it's nicely numb.
That's the Kentucky Kiss. You know what's weird about this one though? And I didn't say it at the beginning. A lot of Kentucky Kiss, not a lot of Kentucky Hug.
No hug. Yeah.
All up here, not down here.
Nothing going down. It's just my mouth.
Yeah, which is odd. It's almost like a wasabi burn. Anyway. Mid-round. Definitions.
Anyway. Fun. So definitions. So some very simple stuff. I think we've talked enough about distillation and fermentation. The mash, touched on it a little bit ago. So that's really the same as from the beer episode. That's when you're taking your grains and you're putting them in water. You're heating the water to a certain level to activate the enzymes that are converting the starch in the grains into sugar that the yeast can eat and make alcohol. So that's your mash, is that process. And then you get your wash from your mash. The wash from the mash is after you do the fermentation and you have the liquid that has your alcohol, your still water, pretty much beer. It's pretty much just beer. It's just the thing that you're going to distill out. It's beer with no hops. You take that and you put it through the distillation process and you get your liquor. And after you get your actual liquor, it comes out at a high proof. Now, what is proof? Proof is the measure of the strength of the alcoholic beverage. It's looking at the percentage of the liquid that is alcohol, and the proof is always going to be double the percentage of alcohol. So if you have something that is
still never understood why we do that.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why we do proof instead of just percentage. Like 200 proof is 100% alcohol.
If I remember correctly, it's because remember when we were talking about how they came up with the proofing, how they figured out the proof with the mixing the alcohol with the gunpowder.
Yep.
And if it lit on fire. Yep. If it lit on fire, it was 100 proof.
Yeah, still does not. Well, okay. Yeah, maybe.
That's because it's 100% proof.
It's 100 proof, but it's not. But it's 50%. So they said.
So that just happened to work out.
So they had to increase the value of proof in order to. Yeah, you're probably.
It's a linear scale. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's
You're probably right. I still hate it.
No, it's weird. I mean, we're literally the only country in the world that does it. Every other country just does percentage.
Scotch doesn't do proof?
Nope.
You sure?
Yep.
Is that the McLeod's? I have mine right here.
40% alcohol by volume. I had decided that I wanted some cognac the other day. So I have Remy Martin here too, which also is 40% alcohol by volume.
Okay, so we're the only ones that do proof because we're the only ones that because we only had pirates.
And then
I wonder if Somalia does proof.
And then about pirates, we got some Jonas Curse here, and that's 94 proof.
Did you hear my joke?
What? I wonder if Somalia has proof.
I just
chose to ignore
it. That's fucking funny. You shut your mouth. No one asked you.
But yeah, so that's what now he's having more. This is turning into Japan all over again. I can see it now.
The Portuguese. But you see, the Portuguese.
The islands were owned by Germany. The Treaty of Versailles.
The incredible thing is not one thing was wrong.
No, well, I haven't done any fact checking, so I don't really know. I'll take your word for it. Anyway, so that's what proof is we talk about quite a bit.
Number cut in half is percentage. Percentage doubled is proof.
Yeah, and then we can go into things like aging. Aging is just how long a type of liquor sits in a barrel, generally. You store the spirits after they come off of the still. You store them in a barrel in order for them to... It usually mellows them out a lot. It takes that like burny alcohol-y flavor and it kind of chills it down and makes it not so painful.
The climate in Kentucky.
No, that's not where we were going.
No, I was guessing.
No. We were talking about that Old Forester birthday. It was 118 proof, I think. Up there. It was overproofed. So overproofed is over 80% or 80.
Anything over 80.
Anything over 80 proof is called overproof. That's
Greg and I don't consider it overproof till it hits like 120.
Yeah, exactly. I will be honest. I look at things that are like 94 proof, 100 proof. I'm like, that's the same shit. So that's what overproofing means. Other things that we talk about a lot. We just went into the aging process to kind of both mellow out the flavors of the alcohol that are coming directly off of the still and to get some of the flavor from the wood. Because that charred oak is really going to impart a lot of, like we always talk about, like the vanilla flavors. We always talk about the oaky flavors. Like that flavor from being in contact with the wood, the liquor picks up all of those flavors and it really develops it. And really, like, in my opinion, that's what makes good bourbon good, is that oaky, charry taste that you get from it.
The heat contrast in Kentucky, it's going into the wood and coming out of the wood. And that char that you require for it to legally be considered bourbon, it opens up the pores of that inside wood, and the charcoal also acts as a filter. Like those all things working together is what is doing that flavor imparting. And it's Kentucky's huge heat swings and like Scotland's not huge heat swings is what, if you ask any good master distiller, after about 7 years, you've gotten about all that you're going to get in the
south of the United States. Now,
there is that distillery in Austin that apparently is putting out 2 years that have some like really solid, but that's because it's like hot all the time.
Well, but that's the thing that we're saying. This is Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, so it's a minimum of 2 years, but it is a 4-year one for this particular bottle. You can get this kind of just look at the color. Like this color of this, it's natural. Dark. It's natural, and that's when it comes out of the barrel. Now,
yeah, that's the whole point of bourbon. It's like it's natural. Like, you cannot add anything to this. This is the color it comes out of the barrel.
Now you compare that to this cognac.
Hold them side by side. Come to the YouTube. Hold them side by side.
Come to the YouTube. Yeah, come to the YouTube channel. You can see the difference here. See how dark
similar.
This is. How they're similar, but this one is, I believe, a minimum of 10 years.
Yeah, for the Remy.
Yeah, I believe for the
7 or 10.
It's either 7 or 10.
7 or longer than 4. I know it's more than 4.
But you can see that the shorter amount of time gets about the same color to it.
Because it's not always about how long it's in the barrel. It's about how it interacts with the barrel, which is why Kentucky is so good at making bourbon.
Yep. They get to warp speed their aging process, as opposed to Scotland that's always mild throughout the whole time. So it doesn't really, there's not a lot of change, so you're not getting a lot of that expansion and contraction. So not a lot's getting actually like into the wood as much.
There's a Texas distillery that lets the day heat hit its rick houses, and then at night it air conditions them.
The chemistry.
Basically, basically like rapid aging.
Yeah, rapidly. At least from the wood flavored notes of it. Now they are not going to lose as much of the actual kind of bite that you get with the alcohol. I'm pretty sure time is the only thing that actually does that.
Yep, over time, the amount that actually filters through like the quote unquote charcoal, which is a lot, which is like why the double chars are so smooth.
Oh, right. So that's aging.
More terms.
Let's bop into blending. So blending is, I mean, we found during our Japanese whiskey days that
you're right. We've had some good blends.
There's some good blends in there.
You're right.
Blending is pretty much the opposite of single barrel. So blended is they take multiple different liquors of the same type that could be aged different amount of times. They could be from different places potentially, and they take them and they mix them all together to get a desired flavor. This is really common in scotches when you see like blended scotches. Everybody knows Johnny Walker blended scotch. They take scotches from
all blended
all over the place and blend them together. So this is a good thing for some reasons, and some people are not as keen on it. People think it's a good thing because it leads to a product that's very repeatable, because you're taking little bits from so many different places. You can easily take little bits from a lot of different places again and come up with a very similar taste profile as that original one that you made. The other flip side to this is the single barrel, like we were talking about. That means everything that's in your bottle came from one barrel. All from the same place, all barreled at the same time.
As it denotes, what it is. Single barrel.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Single barrel. So everything came out.
Is single barrel automatically cask strength? No,
because you can dilute.
Because you can dilute it. So anything single barrel that's like less than 120, probably diluted. So most distilleries are going to barrel at probably within 10 proof of max. Yeah. Like honestly, I really genuinely don't know a distillery that probably does not barrel at least 115, 110.
That's kind of interesting, because now that you're talking about this part of it, we can get into something that we talked about before called backproofing.
Which I've been doing.
Nice segue.
Which I've been doing the entire time.
Yep. Backproofing is something that most distilleries are doing when they are bottling their product, unless it's cask strength. Cask strength means, like we talked about before, came directly out of the cask and directly into your bottle. Nothing changed. Most things, they will backproof it, which is adding a certain amount of water to the alcohol or the spirit in order to lower the ABV to generally a more acceptable level.
This is a mutually beneficial practice.
Yeah.
Because A, they're going to get to stretch that barrel to more bottles. But B, you're going to be able to drink it.
Yeah, you're not going to have the fire burps that we're having right now.
Like, it's like, I do not anticipate all people to be able to just like throw back like a 64 proof. I will say, distillery just opened up the street. They specialize in eau de vies. Eau de vies are very similar to what we were talking about before of like White Lightning. It's like a loose similarity, except it's
the
an unaged brandy.
To unaged brandy. It's the stuff that before aging for brandy.
Yep, it's distilled.
We talked about it in our cognac episode,
which we did. They do they have 170 proof eau de vie. Yeah, I took a shot of it. Yeah.
One time in my life I've ever had actual real White Lightning. That's
so close to 100% alcohol.
Yeah, no, the stuff that I had, it must have been 180 or 190. It was you take a sip of it and you feel it evaporating when it hits your tongue, and your whole mouth just fills up with fumes. and you swallow, and then you swallow again, then you swallow again, then you swallow again, just to try to not throw it up. I took 2 sips of it throughout the whole night and was like, never again. I never want this in my mouth.
I was immediately reminded. So to be fair, I was pretty drunk when I did it, and I shot it. Apparently I wasn't supposed to. So here's the thing: it's a small distillery. So like when you distill clean, it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. So I know the owner. My neighbor is his sister. Like I know the owner of this distillery. Like it's a very small neighborhood distillery.
Yeah.
And I know the guy that runs it. And I plan on, next time you come out, I actually plan on us going up and doing an episode there. Because the speakeasy style bar in the back is like all Louisiana style. It's called the Storyville Lounge. Storyville is an area of Louisiana. Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
It's sick. It's so cool. Like live band, everything. But they standardize on like unaged brandies, eau de vies, rums. But his master distiller, you two would get along so well because he's just a freaking chemistry nerd. He is so clean in the bands that they pull from that like even though it's 170 proof, you nose it, and it's less alcohol fuming than this 61%.
Really?
There's just no fumes. It's just like, now, is it pure fucking ethanol? Pretty much, but it's clean. Like there's no, you can tell there's nothing else.
Yeah, that's why they sell the ethanol coming off,
and that's why they sell it for so much, because it takes effort
to make it happen.
But they're scrapping so much of the run.
Anyway, so that is the opposite of backproofing.
Very opposite of backproofing.
So backproofing is to add water to get it to the ABV that you're desired. So now we talked a little bit about backproofing. We talked about the single barrel, something that kind of goes along with single barrel, but it's not quite as exclusive, is single malt. So a single malt means that everything in the batch is the same mash, the same grains that were used throughout this whole barrel. So it's only one type of grains. It's not grains from all different places.
You hear it a lot in Scotch. Like like you're gonna see like single malt. You're gonna see on Scotch way more often than you're ever gonna see in bourbon.
Exactly, yeah, because it's whiskey. The strict definition: whiskey produced from a single distillery using only malted barley. So it's the single malt. You're only using the one. You're just using the malted barley. Whereas, like
you would actually never see it on a bourbon because there's no corn.
Yeah, because there's not. Yeah, because you're not going to malt the.
Yeah, you have
to use malted barley in the mash
so you're only gonna see it on Scotch and American single malt.
Yep, Scotch and American single malt that would also be used from barley.
Remembering the fight that I almost got into that we did not record with the dude at
Total Wine and More.
Total Wine. Yeah, remember at the checkout, the guy was saying that the American single malt person rubbed her the wrong way because they're trying to get legislation similar to the Bourbon Act passed for American single malts.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a great idea. It's like, no, it's not a good idea. I'm like, no, because it's the rules that make the whiskey what it is. It's just like, if everybody can just go willy-nilly, it might as well be fucking beer.
We have the rhyme what the fuck is it called?
The thing that sounds like very the Reichenschickenbosch?
The German purity law.
Are you talking about the German? Yeah, the German purity laws.
Yeah.
Which America follows none of.
The Reinheitsgebot. That's
Reinheitsgebot.
I had it right.
You were so close.
Reinheitsgebot.
Yeah, which America follows none of.
No, because we're not Germany.
Yeah, but you can't do that with whiskey. Like whiskey, I hate to say it, whiskey requires really strict rules in order to keep it like if you're gonna make a bourbon, it's a really strict rule of what's a bourbon. This is a Scotch. So to me, if you want the American single malt brand to be worldwide regarded as a thing, you have to legally define it and then improve it.
Speaking of legally defining it, we've gotten through some basic distilling terms. Let's get into some whiskey terms. First of all, whiskey versus whiskey. So there's whiskey, WHISKEY, versus whiskey, WHISKY. It literally is just dependent on where it is. Whiskey with an E is used in the United States and Ireland, while whiskey without an E is used in Scotland, Canada, and Japan.
It upsets me so. We talked about this. We said this was going to be a thing. It hurts my fucking soul that those are where the lines are drawn.
You want Scotland on our side?
Yeah, I want the Canadians to draft Ireland.
You want to trade Ireland for Scotland and Japan?
I want to trade Ireland for Scotland and Japan is what I want to do.
Yeah, no,
Like
I
will take my whiskey without the E if I can get to associate with Scotland and Japan and give the Irish and the Canadian
they have their own separate kind of game.
As we established this episode 1. I hate it.
Yeah. Oh, so moving on from whiskey versus whiskey, we have malt whiskey, which is whiskey made from malted barley. That's, again, back to the American single malt, and we can move right along from it.
Scotland.
So then we have grain whiskey. So grain whiskey is pretty much just whiskey. It's whiskey made from any kind of grain, so corn, wheat, barley, rye. It's just whiskey.
Your Everclears. Your Everclears are just grain whiskey.
Yeah, when you just hear grain alcohol,
that's when you get grain alcohol. If you're drinking one of those like canned mixed drinks and you see quote unquote grain alcohol, they're just making whiskey out of grain.
It's just any grain, no rules, just right. What is that from? What is no rules, just right from? That's a tagline.
It's not Buffalo Wild Wings. Is it Buffalo Wild Wings?
It might be Buffalo Wild Wings. No, it's Outback, I think.
Outback Steakhouse.
Talk about branding.
Oh god, dude, we're slaves to marketing.
So that's grain whiskey, and now you get into straight whiskey. This is something that you're seeing on bottles quite a bit.
Legally defined.
Whiskey is legally defined as having to have been aged for at least 2 years, and doesn't contain any additives. But if we're talking about bourbons, that's already there with bourbon definition.
So you can have straight whiskey without it being bourbon.
Correct. But if you have straight whiskey, it also follows the bourbon rule if you can't have any additives.
Correct. So bourbon, no additives. Straight whiskey, no additives. But you can have straight whiskey that's not bourbon. Like, let's say that you only do 40% corn. Not bourbon, can be straight whiskey.
Or no percent corn, because you don't necessarily... American single malt can easily be straight whiskey.
Yes.
As long as it's aged for 2 years or more.
Which, I mean... Most American, yeah, correct. That's like a really weirdly important definition though, because like straight, like Kentucky straight is like that is like known for bourbon, doesn't have to be bourbon.
But then we get into, like you said, the Kentucky straight bourbon. That's specifically for straight bourbon, so aged at least 2 years, made from Kentucky. So it's just kind of, it's all of these different rules that come from these terms, just kind of put together.
If you know the words that matter, it's all relatively common sense.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm going through the rest of these terms that I have for definitions for.
Yeah.
And we've covered them all. I think we've hit everything in one way or another.
Just run through them for me, buddy.
All right. So the other ones that I have here, small batch bourbon, doesn't really mean anything.
Means nothing.
Even this definition here says bourbon made from a select number of barrels, often resulting in a unique flavor profile, aka there's nothing legally binding about it. Single barrel bourbon, so we already talked about single barrel. Mash bill, we already talked about mash bill. Well, I guess we didn't really talk about mash bill. So mash bill, when we were going back to talking about them having to have 51% corn in the mash for bourbon. Mash bill is just all of the different grains that were put together and fermented or mashed. So when they were put together, heated up, enzymes, made into sugar water. That's the mash bill. It's all the stuff that got made into sugar water.
I do want to take like a hot second for mash bill.
Okay. What do you have questions? Do you have more things you want to say?
It's a question / a statement. So originally, I was of the belief that mash bill meant literally fuck all.
No, it does mean something.
No, it does. And that's because I thought like when you distilled the actual product that you were only pulling the alcohol and that all the other flavor came from the barrel. Apparently, what I didn't understand is like there are molecules that definitely like take a ride.
Volatiles, yeah. Yeah,
so there are molecules that absolutely have a flavor complex that take a ride with it. So it's important, I think, for the listeners to understand that mash bill is actually important depending on where you're coming from. So, like, something to think about, Buffalo Trace Distilling is this. So, if people like Buffalo Trace is the same distillery that makes Blanton's. It's also the same distillery that makes Eagle Rare. Very widely tasting bourbons, aged roughly about the same, different mash bills. So, if you are like me and you think mash bill doesn't matter, mash bill does in fact matter.
Yeah, because I'm also equating this back to things like just talking about compounds that you can get that affect flavor and taste and stuff. I'm going to bring in another thing is I've also been known to make a mead from time to time. and something that's different between meads and beers is when you're making mead. Those who don't know, mead is literally just fermented honey. It's literally just mix honey, water, get it to a certain level, ferment it, and it's just honey wine. So when you're making mead, there are some sources that'll tell you to boil it while you're putting the honey in order to get rid of any potential bacteria or anything that could be in your water or anything that could kind of mess up the fermentation. Don't do that, because when you boil honey, they have a lot of compounds that are called aromatic compounds that when you boil it, they just disappear into the air. So you lose a lot of your flavor that you're going to get in your mead if you boil it. Fun fact. Same kind of thing like you're talking about. There's more compounds that come across when you boil at that time.
Yeah, I was always of the opinion that the distillation process wiped out all of the necessity to give a shit what you mashed it with, but it doesn't. It really doesn't.
Now, I am gonna say it's gonna be nuance, because remember when we were drinking the Remy Martin,
all
the
bourbon
cognac?
all bourbon's nuance, buddy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's nuance flavor. It's still. When you're drinking the Remy Martin, which is brandy, so it's fruit juice pretty much boiled off and put into oak barrels, it's very, very similar to bourbon, when you're drinking it, but it has nuance different. It has the apricot, but it has the sweetness that you don't have.
It doesn't taste like this.
It does not. I mean, it's almost tastes like this, but not quite. All right.
There are some that tag along.
Yeah, so there's mash bill. The other definitions I have is charred oak barrels. I don't think you need a definition. It's literally burned oak barrels.
Yep.
Then sour mash, which I still don't understand the point of, but it's just taking some old mash and mixing it with your new mash.
Don't think there's a point. It's to create consistency, they say.
That's what they say. I'm sure there's more to it that I just don't understand, but again, my just logicking it out, it doesn't make any sense to me. And then straight bourbon whiskey, which... Again, it's just a combination of straight and bourbon. When you put those two together, it means a bourbon and all the things that come with being a bourbon, aged for at least 2 years, because that's what straight means. So those are all the definitions that I have pulled.
Hold on, let me quickly backproof my.
That's kind of a cool dropper. I like that.
Oh no, I love this dropper. So it's a Glencairn dropper. It has just a little. It's like a pipette that has a little hole.
Air hole.
Yep, little air hole. I have a separate Glencairn glass. Anytime I'm doing something that's over 58 proof, I keep it on hand. I keep it on hand just in case. I'm already several glasses in. Oh, goodness gracious.
All right, so those are our definitions. I think those were, again, trying to give you guys some background, trying to get you guys a little bit of the basics here. If there is anything else that you are interested in talking to us about, or have any more questions, or need any more definitions, you can write into somethingneatpod@gmail.com. It is somethingneatpod, right?
Somethingneatpod@gmail.com.
@gmail.com.
Greg will put it on the screen if you go to the YouTube.
Yeah, I will if I'm feeling feisty. Now, Anthony, those are the terms that mean stuff. There are lots of terms on bottles that mean
God, there are so
nothing.
many terms.
Would you care to define some of those terms?
As a salesperson, I have made a career off of fluffing stuff up, making things sound better than they are, attaching a word or two that make it seem as if it's something you should buy, when maybe it's not something you should buy. Not in my current career, because that really just doesn't work. But as someone with the mentality of essentially a used car salesman, it's important for me to tell you, the listeners, what things to look for on a whiskey bottle that do not matter.
And I'm going to say that we should do a speed round of these things. Ready?
Hold on.
Oh wait, we have to prime the cannon.
Is this like a lepta-based cannon?
That was exactly what that. That's exactly what that. I'm glad you.
I knew that you were going for bass nectar, lepta-based cannon. Oh, when you take a large sip,
yeah, it punches back.
It's still wild to me that it's all in the mouth and none of it's in the swallow.
Nothing at all.
To me, it speaks to the quality. It's all in the mouth, not in the swallow. Cinnamon, pepper. Okay. All right. I'm going to rattle these terms off. These are terms that go on whiskey bottles. These are marketing terms. These terms mean nothing to anybody at all. Are you ready, Greg?
1, 2, 3, go.
Very old, extra aged, double malted, double matured, double wood, triple cask, small batch, very small batch, distiller select, distiller edition, vintage reserve, special reserve, rarest special vintage reserve. Sour mash, original sour mash, sweet mash, double malt, double sweet malt sour mash. Craft, handcrafted. That should be a gimme. That is the majority of the useless terms, actually. Words that do tell you something. I'm going to run through this too, just so that we all know.
Talked about
Bourbon whiskey, rye whiskey, single malt, Scotch whiskey, Kentucky, Islay, and Isla, however you want to say it. It's the distilling region in Scotland, typically classifies a smoky, malty Scotch. Highland, other things, distillery name, age statement. We talked about this. If a bottle has an age statement, so if it's single malt or it's cask strength or barrel strength or single barrel, and it has an age statement, that's how long it's been aged. If it is a blended whiskey, I do not care what whiskey it is. If it's Scotch, if it's bourbon, if it's whatever. If it's blended and it has an age statement, all that means is the minimum age. That age is the youngest one used in the blend.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue. Alcohol content. That's the ABV. You want to look at that because that determines whether or not you're going to get as drunk as I am right now. Cask type and aging and or finish. Super important.
Bourbon that's one that we didn't actually talk about.
Bourbon is always going to be new oak barrels.
Aged in new oak barrels.
Aged in new oak barrels. There's a thing called finishing. And in Scotch, you can have either finished or matured. If it's finished, that means it was aged in oak, and then they put it for a certain amount of time in a different kind of barrel, probably also oak, but used with a different liquor.
For instance, this McLeod here is sherry cask finished. It's not aged in there.
Exactly. The Glenallachie that I have is sherry matured, meaning that it spent its entire aging period in a sherry cask. Bourbon is always going to be oak. You are going to find some finished bourbons. That means that they did their first bit of aging in oak, and then they wanted to impart a different flavoring, a different flavor profile. So they finished it in a rum, in a cognac, in a pick a barrel.
I feel like rum is the one I see the most.
Yeah, rum is probably most common. Cognac and sherry are probably second. Sherry might be most common. Rum and cognac may be like second and third most common.
But sherry bourbon?
I know a lot of sherry ryes. Either way, finished means it did its original maturation, and then they added a maturation. If you want to like call it what you will, you go to Mager's 46. It's an extra maturation, but they open the original barrel and they add extra staves that creates additional, again, expansion, contraction, flavor creation, because it's pulling molecules out of the oak to make the bourbon taste different.
And a stave is just a piece of the barrel. Like if you look at a barrel, how it has all the different little boards going around, each one of those boards is a stave.
Other things that matter: non-chill filtered or no artificial color. Obviously, that means that the filter was not a chilled filter. No artificial color, super important. Look at Black Velvet. Tell me it doesn't say non-artificial color. Yeah, you won't find that.
It doesn't say that.
It does not say that. Bottle and bond, we talked about that. Generally speaking, bottle and bonds are going to be better than... So if you have Evan Williams, meh. If anyone is considering buying a bottle of Evan Williams, spend the $3 extra and get Evan Williams bottle and bond. Mm-hmm. It's 100 proof. It's a minimum of 4 aged.
Infinitely better.
It's infinitely more condensed because you are restricted to a single distilling season and a single distillery. You can't you have to put out a good product. It's just everything bottle and bond. Old Forester bottle and bond is one of my absolute favorite bourbons. Like, but was it Bowman? I forget who does for Old Forester. It's like Bowman Brothers or like
either way.
Something
bottle and bond important.
God, I love bottle and bond. It's if you're like, I'm gonna get this one, and then you see one right next to it for like $4 more than say bottle and bond, buy the one that says bottle and bond. It's better. We've established that is a more strict single barrel cask strength We've talked about that. Cask-strength barrel proof, talked about that. Limited release.
I would probably put that I was gonna say I put it where it doesn't matter, but I guess it kind of does.
Yeah,
matter.
no. So when it says limited release, so if it gives you a bottle number and batch size.
Yeah, because that's the problem that we had with the Takatsura.
Exactly.
It says it was a limited release, but there was no barrel numbers on it.
Yeah, so you're
So we don't
guessing.
really know.
Now, that said, a lot of the scotches that I have that I brought back from Scotland, it says limited release, but it is numbered and it has the batch size. So like there's only one that I haven't opened, and it's the Arden American. It's one of like 350. It like came out of like 1.5, 2 barrels. And I know for a fact, because it's numbered, barreled, limited release, it's a legally binding thing. Like there's no recreating that. Yeah, so limited release is another term that matters. So I ran quickly through the terms that don't matter, and then there were a lot of ones that we hit that do.
Yeah, most of the ones that we went through.
If you had to pick like your two biggest things that you look at, let's say you were going to buy a whiskey that you've never had before, what are the two things that you really want to see on that bottle that make you say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to try that.
Ooh, that's interesting. Usually, a lot of the times I'm looking at single barrel, because single barrel to me is usually denoting a higher quality product because you can't get around by blending and doing different stuff. It's what came out of that barrel, so it has to be good.
Yep. Love that.
So that's definitely one that I'm going for. I mean, just because I like bourbon, I'm usually looking for the straight bourbon. I like bourbon, straight bourbon. Most of the ones that you get if you're paying a higher price point are gonna say straight bourbon on them because it's at least 2 years. Because as we've seen with different aging, I mean, like this McLeod's is 12 years, Remy Martin's 10 years. We got this stuff, so 2 years is like that's not a lot. So the main thing I'm looking at is the single barrel. Yeah, I think that's really it for me. What about you?
I like that. I like that you said single barrel because I'm in the same camp. A lot of that is because when I went to do the tour at Moonrise Distillery in Georgia, so not in Kentucky, in Georgia, the way that he does it is he has 3 tiers of bourbon. So he has his like lowest tier. So he has 5 different grades that he gives each barrel he tastes. If it's 3 A's and 2 B's, then that's a barrel that he blends with the other 3 A's, 2 B's. Like as far as grades go.
I'm sorry. So the grades, you're saying he has 5 different things that he's grading it for.
Yeah,
okay,
5 categories.
So in those categories, he's got 3 A's and 2 B's.
Yep. Within that category, there are 5 categories. Within that barrel, there are 5 categories. His rating scale. Every time he I don't know, queefs a barrel. What the fuck's it called?
Queefs. Thief. It's a thief.
Thiefs a barrel.
He doesn't queef a barrel. Every time he queefs a barrel. Fucking A, bro. We're not allowed to do fucking this overproof ever again.
Thieves. So much.
Oh, Jesus, you would half the fucking bottle, dude.
That's not half.
What the fuck, dude?
That's not half. So much of that's water. So much of that's yours is a higher proof than mine.
Jesus Christ.
So when he thieves a barrel,
not qua,
thieves a barrel. That's staying in. That's staying in. Fuck you, Patreon. That's staying in.
That's hi Patreon. That's actually going to be our intro right there.
When he thieves a barrel, if he has 5 categories. When it's 3 A's, 2 B's, that goes to his blended like cheaper version of whiskey. He's proud of everything he sells. If it's 4 A's and 1 B, that goes to like his select. So it's still a blend, but it's like his like blended. It's like select.
It's gonna
like,
be
that's
your
his
small
middle. That's
batch,
his middle,
quote unquote.
Exactly. It means nothing, but it's his.
I mean,
genuinely
you can usually. I mean, it means nothing legally. You can usually say that like it's good if you have something like you're saying that is like a whiskey with 3 different tiers, and you've got your regular whiskey, and then you've got small batch whiskey, then you've got single barrel whiskey. It's like small batch, though it means nothing legally, you can use it to kind of denote some quality with it.
So like small batch with something like Michter's
Mhm.
that makes fucking a
Millions.
shit ton of barrels.
Yeah.
So many barrels. It legally and taste wise means nothing. If you are going to like your local distillery that is churning out whiskey and they have a small batch, ask them, hey, what's your criteria? Because that's what I did. And this is not part of their normal tour. Like I was really specific because like I asked like very specifically what creates your blends. So it was he has 5 characteristics. He would not share with me what those are, but 3 A's, 2 B's, cheap. 4 A's, 1 B, those went into like his middle shelves, like small batch blend. So very good. If he tasted a barrel, given all of the time, the aging, what he pulled out, all that stuff, and it like based on what he tasted, it was 5 A's. Like A's across the board. That was his single barrel. And he would take those and he would barrel them and he would single barrel them and he would batch number them. So when you look at something single barrel, and this is for the listeners, when you look at something single barrel, I want you to look at, does it say single barrel? And then I want you to like consider how big the distillery is. Because as much as we like to think that this is like some huge industrial complex, there is still a master distiller that is tasting every single one of these barrels.
Mm-hmm.
And if something is being selected as a single barrel or as a cask strength, there is something special about it. And it aged so perfectly that giant brand is willing to release it to you as is. And that's special. That's why I will always prefer a single barrel over virtually anything else.
Well, that's also like this Bondstone. It's a subsidiary of 1792, which is a huge whiskey distillery. So it's a subsidiary of them, and like you said, they're willing to release cask strength. There's no hiding behind putting some water on it and just diluting it. That's that. This is the bourbon that came directly out of that barrel.
Yeah, and it's good. And it's good. And I think based on how drunk I am, we should rate it and then move on.
Yeah, no, I think we should probably rate it pretty quickly.
Minimum 4-year age, cask strength. My notes are not that much different than we started with. On the nose, sure, there's a bit of alcohol because it's heavy. Of course, it's overproofed. All Kentucky Kiss, no Kentucky Hug, which I appreciate. Vanilla, I get more of the cinnamon. If I have to give this a number, if you took this complexity and proofed this down to like 80, I think this would be a phenomenal. Like for the average drinker, I think this would be an absolutely phenomenal pour. Bang for your buck. This was not an expensive bottle.
It was not. If I remember correctly, I think this was $54.
And I think they should be proud of it. Like I said, I get the vanilla, I get the oak, I get the spice. I don't get the stone fruit that you might get from some other ones. If you like overproofed whiskey, which I do, I give this a 7.1.
All right. 7.1.
7.4. Final. 7.4. Final answer. Give your ranking while I backproof my newest port, which I should not have made.
So I agree. I think the vanilla is still there, oak's still there. Tasting notes have not changed from the middle tasting that we did. I think it's good. It's not. I still think I'm really mostly just getting the vanilla and the oak. Like I still think it's mostly the 2 notes and the alcohol, because there's definitely, because of the cask strength, it definitely is a prevalent flavor. I like it quite a bit, actually. I think it's pretty tasty.
Bang for your buck.
Bang for your buck, definitely up there. But I'm probably going to pop her at like a 7.5, I think. 7.5, I think it's about right.
But are you higher than me?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. I think you went too low again. I think it's good.
No, I think it's very good.
I mean, honestly, I think it could use an ice cube. I think an ice cube with this, a nice big rock, I think it would be very good. It's been a pleasure, sir. Fun episode, tasty bourbon. I'm a little afraid for your health that you poured yourself another glass, but we're going to hope for the best here. And cheers, friend.
I encourage everyone to seek out this distillery. It's new, but it doesn't suck. Before Bardstone gets big, go get your bottle.
Bondstone.
Bardstone's the scotch I have. Bondstone. Before Bondstone gets big, go get your bottle.
On that fucking note, good night, sir.
Cheers,
Have
bitch.
A good one. I'm a little drunk.